recently. She was always trying to control me, and she's a very controlling person and manipulative. That's what this...
Even with this string, would you marry me?
I just don't know.
It wasn't the silence that hurt. It was the way she looked at him, like the string on her finger was too heavy to carry. Matt, down on one knee, holding nothing but a piece of thread and years of hope, waited. And Jasmine said, "Nothing. Not yes, not no, not even maybe. Just a pause long enough to crack his voice from the inside out." He thought he was offering love. What he exposed instead was distance. There was no music, no fairy tale sparkle, just raw tension, a baby crying in the background, and the kind of stillness you only get before a storm. He tried to smile through it, telling her he wasn't rushing her, but his eyes were begging for something. Anything. And she gave him exactly what he feared most. I don't know. You're watching reality sport. I'm Oliva. And yes, this really happened. A grown man proposed with a string, and somehow, that wasn't the most gut-wrenching part. Was that sweet, sad, or a little desperate? Tell me what you think in the comments below, because this isn't your average love triangle. This one has legal ties, pending divorces, and a man named Gino, waiting in the dark with paperwork and some serious grudges. See, Matt thought he was carving out a new chapter. He and Jasmine had a baby together. They'd survived messy drama, screaming matches, cultural confusion, and the slow death of Jasmine's marriage to Gino. But what Matt underestimated was how deep Gino still lives in Jasmine's emotional ecosystem and in her legal docs. Because here's the thing. Jasmine isn't divorced yet. Not from Gino. She had a child with Matt while still legally carrying Gino's last name. So technically, even though she's living in the present, her entire life is still stamped with someone else's past. And deep down, Matt knows this. That's why that string wasn't just symbolism. It was his attempt to say, pick me over him. But Jasmine hesitated. It's one thing to make mistakes. It's another to stay stuck in them. Jasmine says she wants to move on, but her actions are slower than her words. And Matt? He's doing his best to be the hero of the chapter she hasn't finished reading. He wants commitment. He wants clarity. But all he's getting is confusion, guarded answers, and an emotional clock that keeps rewinding. And while Jasmine might not have meant to reject him, it landed that way. Every second she hesitated, the gap between them grew wider. Matt might have come with good intentions. But good intentions wrapped in fear, pressure, and unresolved pasts tend to fall flat. But what Jasmine says next flips everything you thought you knew about her loyalties. Gino's version of moving on starts with a tray of frozen lasagna and ends with him filing an immigration fraud report against his own ex. Sitting in his recliner, microwaving sadness in plastic, he tells the camera he's back to eating whatever's easy, and that he'll start eating better once he meets someone again. But underneath that casual tone is something darker. This isn't about food. It's about power. And right now, Gino's starving for control. He hasn't even filed for divorce yet. Not because he wants Jasmine back, he says he doesn't, but because he wants his allegations of fraud to stick. Every day that paper sits unsigned is another day he can hope she gets punished. If that doesn't scream unfinished business, I don't know what does. He's holding on to his legal connection like it's a remote control for her life. And here's what that tells us. Gino isn't looking for closure. He's looking for consequence. And not for himself. But revenge never tastes as good as people think. Gino says he's protecting himself, making sure he doesn't lose his money. But the energy here? It's not defense. It's spite in disguise. In his mind, Jasmine wasted 4 years of his life. So now, instead of wiping his hands clean, he's waiting for an opportunity to make her pay for lost time. Call it what you want. But from the outside, it looks like punishment dressed up as precaution. What's wild is, while Gino's still obsessing over control, Jasmine has already built a new life. And Gino? He finds that out through Instagram. One scroll, one tagged post. That's when he sees her with a baby girl, Matilda. Big smile, glowing skin, happy couple pose with Matt. And Gino? Couldn't look more stunned. The woman he tried to report is now a mother, a girlfriend, or maybe fiancé if you believe Matt's story, and living like he never mattered. And in that moment, something clicks. Gino isn't grieving a relationship. He's grieving relevance. He didn't even know she gave birth. He didn't even know she named the baby. That post didn't just surprise him, it shattered any illusion he had that she might still need him. But what Gino does still have is legal status. And thanks to the fact that they're still technically married, he's tied to things he didn't choose. Like a child. A child that isn't biologically his, but might legally be. So now the question isn't just how Jasmine moved on so fast. It's whether Gino still holds legal power over a future he's no longer in. And just as Gino's world crumbles, he learns one thing that legally ties him to a baby that isn't even his. One photo, 3 smiles, and a silent bomb ticking underneath. Matt posts it like a proud dad, Jasmine beams like motherhood was always meant for her, and baby Matilda, innocent, glowing, unaware that the man behind the lens isn't the one her birth certificate recognizes. Legally, that spot still belongs to Gino because Jasmine's divorce? Still pending. And in the state where she gave birth, that means the presumed father of any child born during a marriage is the husband. Translation? Gino, the ex she ditched, the man she hasn't touched in over a year, the same one she accused of being controlling and emotionally manipulative. That's the name stamped next to her daughters. And Gino? That Instagram reveal hit him in places that frozen meals can't reach. He finds out not from her, not from paperwork, but from his Uncle Marco sending him screenshots. Suddenly, it's not about hurt feelings. It's about legal chaos. In Gino's eyes, this isn't just betrayal, it's exposure. He's tied to a baby that isn't his. In some states, he'd need to disprove paternity to get out of it. That means court dates, lawyers, DNA tests, all for a kid he's never met. Matt, meanwhile, is doing what men do when they sense power slipping. He shrugs it off. Acts like this doesn't make him any less her father. But you can see it in his body language, tense, restless. He knows the truth. Right now, Gino's signature still carries more legal weight than Matt's bond. That's not just uncomfortable, that's dangerous. And Jasmine? Hers is the strangest reaction of all. She admits it's complicated. She knows what Gino could do if he wanted to stir the pot. He could request custody hearings. He could block passports. He could claim rights. Not out of care, but out of spite. Instead of cutting him off, Jasmine keeps dealing with him like he's still part of her narrative, telling Matt it's not important right now, that they'll sort it out later. Only, later never seems to come. She's acting like the past will fade without confrontation. But legal ties don't dissolve emotionally just because your heart's moved on. Sometimes, the slow refusal to push a final button is its own form of loyalty. Whether she realizes it or not, Jasmine hasn't burned the bridge. She's just not using it anymore. But it's still there. Strong enough for Gino to walk back in, if and when he chooses. And if the baby is Matt's, why is Gino still the one holding the legal key? If tension had a flavor, this dinner would taste like spoiled milk with a side of burnt expectations. Jasmine stands at the stove, nervously stirring her version of polenta, what she proudly calls Latina palenta, while rehearsing fake smiles and polite answers in her head. She's never met Matt's mom, and unlike her past relationships, this one comes with a strict, living, God-fearing mother. Jasmine's words, not mine. I've never had a mother-in-law. They're all dead. She says it so casually, you wonder if she's joking or slightly cursed. Matt doesn't flinch. But his sister gives him that silent sibling stare that screams, "Are you serious with this woman?" The prayer spoken during dinner is almost enough to make Jasmine want to disappear into her watery cornmeal. Matt's mom closes her prayer on a strong note. Lord, forgive us all. Jasmine too. Blinking, Jasmine forces a tight smile because when you're sitting across from a woman who believes your very existence is questionable morality, using too much water in the polenta becomes the least of your problems. But Jasmine is not here to pick a fight. She's here to survive. She plates the food, smiling through her discomfort, playing her part as the respectable mother of the granddaughter these women are meeting for the very first time. What she's not prepared for is the emotional ambush that's coming, disguised as a sweet gesture. Matt's sister presents a delicate box. Inside, a necklace with the baby's name. Matilda. Elegant, simple, thoughtful. Jasmine bites her lip, clearly touched. She mumbles thanks, but something in her eyes shifts. That heavy, guilty glint she gets when the lies she's been sitting on start to spill over her smile. There's only so long you can fake clean when your hands are still tied to a different man's past. She excuses herself to the kitchen, under the pretense of checking dessert, but really, she needs to breathe. Collect herself. Matt follows, trying to keep the energy light. That's when Jasmine drops the first internal bomb. Does your mom know I'm still married? Matt freezes. He hasn't told her. Not about the marriage, not about the legal mess, and definitely not about the fact that the adorable baby she's holding? Yeah, legally she belongs to Jasmine and Gino. Jasmine is horrified, not so much that the lie exists, she's used to those, but that she is part of someone else's spin this time. Back at the table, dessert is delayed because guilt is bubbling faster than the stove. Jasmine can't do it anymore. She gives Matt a look. Not just any look. The one that means tell them, now. So Matt clears his throat in the middle of small talk and unofficially ends the meal with a verbal explosion. Mom, I lied. We're not engaged. Jasmine is still married. To Gino. The silence is violent. His mom's fork is midair. His sister looks like she's trying to buffer the sentence in her brain. Jasmine stares at the table, ashamed, then lifts her eyes like she has one last drop of courage left. And with it, she says something that lands harder than Matt's confession. My husband still has rights over Matilda. Legally, she's his daughter too. That silence turns to panic. Matt's mom looks physically ill. Does he have custody? She asks. Matt says no. Jasmine starts to explain, but it doesn't matter. Logic has left the room. Fear just took its seat. From the outside, this looks like a soap opera. But inside that house, it feels like betrayal, chaos, and years of family values being shredded across the dinner table. Matt tries to calm things down, saying lawyers are involved, and they're handling it. But handling what? Exactly? A legal claim Gino didn't ask for, but could still use? A baby now caught in an emotional battlefield between three adults who barely understand each other? And here's what stings most. His mom believed they were building a life rooted in faith, baby steps toward a marriage they'd already announced on a lie. And now, her son is a father to a child that legally belongs to another man, spiritually tied to a woman who won't even wear a real ring. Even Jasmine, usually the queen of cold detachment, can't keep it together. Her voice cracks when she says, I never meant to lie, but I didn't know how to face you. I didn't want to break your heart. Matt's sister asks the one question that cuts through the fog. Then why are you still married to him? And Jasmine? She doesn't rush to answer. Her mouth opens, then closes. The old wounds don't have clean explanations. And in that moment, every person at the table realizes something they didn't want to admit. This story isn't new. It's just deeper than they ever thought. The marriage may be stalled by paperwork, but emotionally, it's nowhere near over. But if Matt's mom is shocked now, wait until she finds out what Gino can still do. There's a kind of silence that's louder than screaming. Matt's sitting there, holding her hand, string still wrapped around her finger like some desperate promise stitched in yarn. And Jasmine can't even meet his eyes. She's wiping tears, but there's no smile, no laugh, no sparkle. Whatever he was hoping for with that spontaneous proposal, this isn't it. When she finally speaks, it's soft, almost like she's speaking to herself. If I ever heal that part of me, and if I ever get married again, I'd want it to be you. It sounds sweet at first. A maybe, a pause, a soft launching pad toward yes, but underneath, it smacks of delay, of distance. That's not a promise. That's a placeholder. The kind of sentence someone says when they don't want to hurt you directly, so they wrap their exit in poetry. And Matt hears it. His jaw clenches, his face drops, and the mask comes off just long enough for bitterness to peek through. How is it, he asks, that you were able to accept a ring from Gino, but I have to work this hard to put a string on your finger? The sentence hits like a slap, dipped in self-pity. It's part heartbreak, part passive aggression, and fully transparent. Because now, he's not asking her to say yes, he's asking why she can't. That's when Jasmine flinches. You can see her body language shift, defensive, then apologetic, then nearly silent. She doesn't deny it, doesn't push back. She just says, I don't know, like it's the only truth she has left. Here's the thing, rejection doesn't always come in the shape of no. Sometimes it looks like hesitation, or delay, or emotional paralysis. Jasmine didn't shut Matt down because she doesn't like him. She shut down because she's not whole. In fact, she's been splintered for so long that the idea of signing up for forever again makes her flinch before she even finishes the thought. And when you've gotten burned badly enough once, even good love feels suspect. What Matt's missing here is emotional hierarchy. He thinks the time they've shared, the baby they've created, the mess they've survived, those things equal trust. But Jasmine's view is different. Those things make him part of her story, not necessarily her future. At least, not yet. Women who've been through public heartbreak, control, baggage, and shame often say the same thing. Love wasn't the hardest part. Safety was. Feeling safe enough to trust your instincts again, that's where the real mountain sits. Jasmine loved Gino once too. You don't spend years of your life with someone without calling it love at some point. But that love left scars. Now, here comes Matt. Softer, smiling, holding their child. But also holding expectations she's not ready to carry. And you have to ask, is Matt seeing her clearly? Or is he in love with the idea of Jasmine, the redemption arc, the woman who switched teams for him, the mother of his newborn daughter? A story that makes him feel like the good guy after chaos. Because right now, it feels like Matt's trying to rescue someone who doesn't want to be rescued. She wants to breathe. That string on her finger? For Jasmine, it's psychological tightrope. A yes feels too fast. A no feels too final. So she stalls. And Matt, instead of recognizing her fear, pushes again. Gently, yes, but still pushes. Eventually, Jasmine asks, why does it have to be now? And Matt, visibly shaken, says he's doing this to show commitment. To prove that, no matter what, he's not leaving. He wants to be her stability. The problem is, when you try to force permanence into a house still being repaired, the foundation gives out. Jasmine isn't saying no to him. She's saying no to the timing, but Matt can't separate the two. She tells him again, softly, right now, I just don't have an answer. She's crying again, quieter this time. Maybe for him. Maybe for herself. Maybe for all the broken promises that led her here. And Matt, despite everything, doesn't get angry. He just withdraws. His voice lowers. His hand moves away. You can tell he's already doing the math, wondering how long he can wait. before the string starts to strangle. And if this rejection stings, wait until Matt learns the real reason Jasmine won't say yes. Gino's idea of transformation starts in the men's section, somewhere between a discount rack and the sales associate's forced smile. He walks into the store like a man on a mission, ready to dress for the part he's desperate to play. New, confident, unbothered. Maybe even dateable again. He fingers jacket after jacket, trying them on like costumes, but none of them feel right. Too tight, too flashy, too not like me, he says. And then he holds one in his hands, shrugs it on, stares at himself in the mirror. He squints a little. This jacket, he grumbles, feels like her. Tight. Controlling. Like I can't move. It's a throwaway line on the surface. But really? That sentence says more about Gino than any therapy session could. Because he doesn't just want clothes. He wants control. He doesn't want to feel confined, like he did with Jasmine. And now, even fabric reminds him of her expectations. Her criticisms, the way she made him feel small, without ever yelling. That jacket isn't clothing. It's his past, clinging to his shoulders. Still, he tries to sell himself on a new image. Gino 2.0. He tells the salesman he's looking to get back into dating, that he wants to look sharp, maybe George Clooney light, if the price is right. He chuckles at his own delusion. But behind the jokes, you can see the eggshell confidence. He's not here to impress dates. He's here to feel like he hasn't fully lost himself. There's a burst of momentary triumph when he finally finds the jacket. It fits. It flatters. For a second, Gino looks genuinely proud. Like the guy in the mirror might stand a chance. He even says, I probably should have done this a long time ago. But then, the tag flips over. He reads the price. The color drains from his face. The old Gino returns instantly, frugal, flinching, and ready to retreat. It's beautiful, he mutters, but out of my budget. And I've got a divorce coming up to pay for, too. And just like that, the fantasy collapses. He walks out, empty-handed, emotionally, right where he started, but now 50 minutes older. Because you can't budget your way into healing. You can't patch masculinity with outerwear. And you can't undo the crippling need for control by switching jackets. He's still the guy who won't finalize his divorce, still clinging to a report he filed out of anger, still feeding on resentment disguised as self-protection. While Gino tries on clothes, Jasmine is trying on roles. New mom, devoted partner, chef, guest of honor. She performs each scene like she's auditioning for the life she wants, but hasn't fully owned. She plans dinner like it's proof she belongs in Matt's family, wears soft expressions when speaking to Matt's mom, accepts necklaces with Matilda's name, says the right things at mostly the right times. But beneath the surface, Jasmine's energy is the same as Gino's. She's acting, not maliciously, but desperately. She knows she's not there yet. Emotionally, she's still split, still legally someone else's wife, still clutching secrets, still unsure whether this new chapter is real or rebound. Every laugh is a little too rehearsed. Every thank you a little tight in the throat. Because when you're busy performing stability, you rarely feel it yourself. Matt wants a future. He wants a real yes. But Jasmine is using motherhood like a shield. Like if she cooks the meals and changes the diapers, maybe no one will notice she still hasn't untangled from her past. Gino used money. Jasmine's using caretaking. Two different currencies. Same fear. Abandonment. Jasmine doesn't want to be left. Doesn't want to feel disposable. But she's also terrified of losing herself again. So she stays half present. Just enough to function. Not enough to heal. Meanwhile, Matt senses something's off. He senses she's drifting emotionally, too cautious, too mechanical. He tries to help with the baby, cracks jokes, reassures her constantly. And still, she responds with that same phrase she's been using like a seatbelt. I just don't know. The more he leans in, the more she's leaning back. Gino, sitting alone in his apartment later that day, reflects on Jasmine's baby. Her face, the way that picture burned a hole through him. He tells the camera, "She wasted 4 years of my life. That was time I could have spent with someone who really loved me." But even now, Gino doesn't recognize how much of that time he wasted. On half measures, on miscommunication, on passive control tactics that drove Jasmine further out the door. He talks like a victim, not the villain, but never quite the participant. And that's the root issue. Neither Jasmine nor Gino have taken real accountability for their own scars. And until they do, everything, including the way they love, remains contaminated by history. So, in two different scenes, stitched together by an old story of control and deflection, they mirror each other. Gino walks out the store without a jacket. Jasmine walks out of a dinner steeped in shame. One couldn't afford change. The other wasn't ready to accept it. But this isn't just wardrobe talk. It's the moment both Gino and Jasmine expose their real scars. The night after the proposal, Jasmine sat on the edge of the bed, holding Matilda's tiny sock in her hands like it was made of glass. No words, no explanations. Just heavy silence and red-rimmed eyes that begged for solitude. She didn't cry when Matt tied the string around her finger. She waited, held it in. But now, in the quiet, away from everyone else's expectations, her breath started to shake. Not because she didn't want Matt, but because maybe, secretly, she did. And wanting something that pure when you're still tangled in something that toxic? It's terrifying because to reach out fully with both hands, she'd have to let go of the one thing she hasn't processed yet. Failure. Her failed marriage. Her unhealed baggage. Her unfinished goodbye to Gino. Matt, outside with the baby monitor, sat on the patio with a beer sweating in his hand. He wasn't angry. That would have been easier. He was just tired. Tired of asking questions that never got answers. Tired of giving more than Jasmine could receive. Tired of pretending the ghost of Gino wasn't sitting between them every night while they whispered their half-truths under low light with a newborn dozing in the next room. "I don't want to be a placeholder," he'd said earlier. "I don't want to raise our kid while feeling like someone else is still in the rear view." And he's not wrong, because even when Jasmine looks at Matt, sometimes her face flickers the way people's faces do when old memories crash into new reality. The kind of flicker that says, "I'm trying to be here," but isn't always sure she's made it. And here's the sad truth. Jasmine isn't emotionally checked out. She's emotionally paralyzed. There's a difference. When you've spent years in chaos, real love doesn't scream at you. It whispers. And sometimes the whisper isn't loud enough to override the static that lives in your chest from the damage done before. Gino wasn't perfect. Not by a long shot. But he was the one constant for 4 long years. Familiar. Predictable in his flaws. And even when he filed immigration fraud papers after she left, part of Jasmine's mind still associates him with security. It's twisted, sure, but trauma often confuses comfort with control, like one is the cost of the other. So Matt, unknowingly, is asking Jasmine to leap, to tear the paperwork, rename her daughter's legal status, divorce the man who haunted her and, in some bizarre way, protected her for too long. And she's scared. Because Matt is everything Gino wasn't, but that means she has nothing to hide behind anymore. And being fully seen scares people who've lived too long, half in shadow. But then the question lingers. If Jasmine truly wants Matt, why hasn't she signed the divorce papers? Why leave that door open? Why not finish the chapter? Legally and emotionally. Maybe the answer isn't that simple. Maybe Jasmine doesn't have closure. Not because she wants Gino back, but because she never got to leave on her own terms. Everything ended in a firestorm, accusations, online ugliness, fighting, and then silence. No goodbye, no apology, just destruction. And now, years later, she's trying to start a new life without ever sweeping the ashes. And Matt. Poor Matt. He walked into the remnants of a war and built a crib in the ruins. He's held Jasmine up, held their baby high, and still she's pulling away. Not in motion, but in energy. Her eyes are still in the past, even when her feet stand next to his. But is he asking too much too soon? A string proposal after an unresolved divorce, a religious family dinner full of lies, a 2-month-old baby, and no clear path forward. Is it fair to demand certainty in that chaos? Real love, one rooted in truth, needs time, but Matt's clock is ticking loudly in the background, and Jasmine can hear it with every question he asks. Do you love me? Do you want this family? Can you see a future with me? And her answers are always soft, delayed, half-built, because she does love him. But she doesn't fully believe yet that she deserves him. Maybe no one here is evil. But no one is innocent either. Jasmine held secrets too long. Matt told lies to keep a temporary peace. Gino torched the bridge when he couldn't control the path. Everyone played their part. And now a little girl sleeps down the hall, while 3 adults decide what kind of world she'll wake up in. And Gino, for all his drama, still holds papers that could affect where Matilda lives, who she belongs to legally, and what Jasmine's future even looks like. If he wanted to be vindictive, he would have ammunition. And Jasmine knows that. It's why she hasn't lit that match. Because the last time she hurt Gino, he tried to hurt her back harder. She's afraid another rejection will bring war. But avoidance won't save her now. Not from Matt's slow disappointment. Not from herself. She wants peace. She wants love. But she also wants to leave part of herself untouched. Safe. Closed off. And you can't have both. You can't grow a future in soil still poisoned by things you refuse to uproot. Later that night, Jasmine picks up Matilda as the baby starts to stir. She holds her close, kisses the top of her head, and sways gently like the motion itself is a lullaby. Her face is softer now. Not smiling. Not yet. But softer. There's something about holding your child that reminds you what's real, who's worth fighting for, what's worth breaking for. Matt watches her from the hallway, leaning against the doorframe like he's watching a memory being made. Without him. And maybe he is. Because at this moment, Jasmine isn't his partner. She's Matilda's mother. Quiet. Still. Lost in thought. Maybe rewriting her own past. Maybe imagining a clean future. One man gave her chaos. Another man gave her calm. And somehow both still live inside her like old songs she can't delete. The string is still on her finger. Loose now. Slipping slowly. But she hasn't taken it off. And with one string, one baby, and one lie, Jasmine may lose both men without ever choosing either.